Underneath the dazzling lights of an up-and-coming award ceremony in Manhattan, where excitement merged with anticipation, a ripple of curiosity began to spread amongst the gathered stars and influential figures. It was expected to be a typical night filled with glamour, back-patting, and humor encased in political commentary. But everything changed when Naomi Winters made her entrance. Draped in a chic emerald gown that shimmered against the backdrop of flashing bulbs, her signature gold pendant glinting like a beacon, she strode into the venue with grace and confidence, accompanied by her partner, Lucas Hayes, a steadfast former Army Ranger whose silent strength was palpable. Unlike the usual entourage of glittering celebrities or faux bodyguards, the presence of Lucas was magnetic. Even from afar, one could sense the intrigue he invoked. Amongst the commotion, someone whispered, "Is that her new security detail?" Only to be corrected, "No, that's her husband, a veteran, I believe." Inside the ballroom, the hum of conversation grew, buoyed by a sense of impending entertainment. Then the lights dimmed, and out came Maxwell Reed, the suave and charismatic host for the evening, with a playful smirk plastered across his face. As he welcomed everyone, his tongue danced between jabs and jokes, threading laughter through the crowd. "Tonight, we have senators, stars, and even a few conspiracy enthusiasts," he quipped, earning a roaring laugh. He continued, "And look who it is, the fiery Naomi Winters, accompanied by her very own secret weapon. Does anyone know if that's her bodyguard? Oh, wait. Turns out she married him." Laughter erupted, but behind the facade of joviality, the tension spooled tight in Naomi's expression, while Lucas's jaw clenched in response. Maxwell wasn't finished. "I was fooled at first. I mean, wow, he's got that tough guy look for sure. Guess that's her secret. I thought superheroes existed only in films." The laughter grew louder, but Naomi stood erected like an unyielding monument, her smile eclipsed by the iciness of her demeanor. Lucas leaned closer, concern knitting his brow. "It's all right?" he asked quietly. She nodded, but her eyes spoke volumes. "I'm fine." "He's not." Naomi placed her napkin down with deliberate gentleness, stood, and with unwavering certainty, made her way to the backstage. Lucas followed closely, an anchor to her rising tide of indignation. Oblivious to the internal stirrings as he continued his hosting duties with a false bravado, Maxwell progressed through his script. But back in the shadows, a storm was breaching. Without warning, the lights dimmed once again, disruption coursing through the audience as the familiar spotlight illuminated the stage floor. This time, it revealed Naomi, confidently reclaiming the space that had been superficially occupied by small-minded ridicule. Naomi, this isn't your segment," Maxwell fumbled, somewhat taken aback, as she took the microphone without a glance toward him, her gaze trained firmly on the audience. "Since Maxwell brought me into the conversation, I believe it's only fair that I respond," she began, her voice steady and resonant, cutting through the murmurs of surprise. A nervous titter rippled through the crowd. "You know," she gestured with calm authority, "it's all too easy to stand up here and take shots at people who've walked different paths than the privileged Hollywood spotlight. But let's be clear, it wasn't just me he mocked. That ragged question was aimed at my partner, a man who for a decade faced real combat and who represents values far beyond your scripted lines." The air shifted. Even the elite sipping champagne paused to listen, captivated by the gravity of her words. "I walked into this venue tonight fully aware that I'm not the typical guest. I didn't emerge from glitz or glam. I come from the principles of service, discipline, and respect, something you might not grasp in your world of punchlines and jests. Her brief glance at Maxwell, whose facade faded, asserted the potency of her words. As for claiming he resembles a fictional hero, cute but inaccurate, trust me, he would best Jason Bourne any day in reality. The audience erupted with applause, cheers echoing from the back row, where a faction of veterans rose to express their solidarity. Maxwell, Naomi concluded, I don't need the glitz of Hollywood to commandeer your stage. All it takes is speaking the truth. With that, she pivoted, leaving a lingering silence in her wake as she departed backstage, Lucas waiting there, pride and understanding etched across his face. That was something, he whispered, barely able to contain a smile. Meanwhile, Maxwell, encompassed by turmoil, began to pace backstage, flanked by a stream of anxious producers murmuring in his ear, Just move on, Maxwell. Stick to the script. But he sensed the ground shifting beneath him. Naomi's unyielding calm had struck a powerful chord. Social media ignited with snippets of her defiant stand, especially her line about commanding a stage without the need for a star title. Determined to regain the spotlight, Maxwell returned with a forced smile plastered across his face. Well, looks like I've just been lectured by America's new champion of virtue. Some in the crowd offered obligatory chuckles, while others exchanged uneasy glances. Yet Maxwell plowed ahead, longing for control. I respect our armed forces, no doubt about that. But let's not get confused. Marrying a soldier doesn't qualify one as a leadership expert. His words hung in the air like an unresolved chord, the audience frozen in shock, their collective breaths caught in disbelief. Lucas, who had remained silent during the earlier chaos, stepped forward slowly. "Is it all right if I speak?" he asked, the calm steel lacing his voice, paralyzing the room. In an unexpected move, he walked to the center stage. The crowd shifted, intrigued by the tension brewing. "You can joke all you want, but you crossed a line when you questioned her leadership. She earned her platform. Meanwhile, you act like you were entitled to yours." The crowd gasped. Maxwell stumbled over his words, a hint of panic flickering in his eyes. With an unhurried grace, Lucas relinquished his microphone, nodded at Naomi, and walked off, leaving an aura of resolution in his wake. Meanwhile, social media erupted once more. Hashtags like Moron Lucas dropped the mic and support your veterans propelled to trending status. Clips circulated, capturing Lucas's composure amidst the chaos, a former soldier speaking not out of anger, rather from a wellspring of quietly contained truth. Backstage, several channels, from conservative to liberal, acknowledged the ripple effects of the moment. Naomi, with renewed purpose, began fielding messages from supporters, veterans organizations, journalists alike, remarking on her principled stand. The whirlwind left Lucas unfazed, preparing coffee that morning like it was an ordinary day, while Naomi prepared for an upcoming media storm. "You know," Naomi finally chimed, watching him work with quiet admiration, "you really stirred things up last night." Lucas smiled softly. "All I did was share the truth." She raised an eyebrow, intuitively aware of the source of their power. Exactly why it resonated. Just then, from his home office, Maxwell found himself on the defensive, sifting through furious notifications. Rather than accolades, he was trending for far different reasons. His recent performance rendered the subject of multiple critiques, none favorable. He simmered, muttering to himself, "That man is a force." Having realized that it wasn't Lucas solely, but a transcendent notion of integrity that had emerged, Meanwhile, Washington was abuzz, focusing on Naomi, who stood before the press. Unperturbed by questions about the award show spectacle, she handled each inquiry with poise and grace. A CNN reporter curiously brought up the ceremony. "Ms. Winters, what do you have to say about the events that escalated last night?" Naomi beamed, composed and confident. "What my partner articulated reverberates louder than anything I could utter. He wasn't merely defending me, he was championing respect for service." The digital universe exploded with anecdotes of courage and valor, climbing to millions of views within hours. Invitations began flooding in for Naomi and Lucas, every major news network wishing to showcase their unyielding companionship. The nation was watching a couple that fought battles for each other, not just for recognition. At Fox News, Naomi felt the burbling nervousness of their mounting expectation. "You sure you want to do this?" she quizzed Lucas. He nodded ever so slightly, his calming demeanor persistent. "I may not enjoy being in the public eye, but if it helps put an end to folks like Maxwell, count me in." Their anticipated interview reached millions of screens that night, with Lucas stating firmly, "It's not about defending her. It's a reminder that not everyone with a microphone deserves to use it." Twitter lit up anew. The world was witnessing a powerful concoction of resolve and togetherness. But the next day opened a Pandora's box, when a laden envelope arrived for Naomi. Unmarked and nondescript, she discerned the contents. A legal scrawl from Maxwell, yielding warnings of damages to his reputation. It was a direct strike against humble career paths, one meticulously crafted. Unbothered, Naomi embraced the challenge with tenacity. "He really thinks he can intimidate us?" she questioned rhetorically, sharing an amused glance with Lucas. That night, she started gathering her files amid the darkness, history revealing secrets buried within a digital vault named Operation Truth. Instructions once kept private during ascendant pursuits surfaced. Naomi carefully opened fragments from 2020, a moment that revealed Maxwell's backing out of a veterans charity event at the last moment, documentation slipping through her grasp when it was less daunting. "This isn't revenge," she murmured resolutely, as Lucas addressed his own concerns regarding escalation. "It's about accountability." Within hours, Naomi released her stark statement. "We acknowledge the legal threats set forth against us. I'm a truth teller, not intimidated by the bravado of celebrity lawsuits. Yet, I will gladly unveil the documented truths regarding Mr. Reed's abandoned commitments to military communities. We can have a conversation in court or on screen, your choice." The explosion online was electric. Hashtags and retweets surged. Maxwell became the target of twisted narratives where veterans recounted bitter disappointment and unfulfilled promises stemming from that fateful day. "We were waiting for him. We never received an apology," echoed voices among those who witnessed the fallout. Maxwell stirred in silence, caught in the spiraling vortex birthed from Naomi's action. Inside organizations, discussions of past interactions of unprofessionalism resurfaced as narratives woven in power dynamics began to format. As if waking from a slumber of accountability, Hollywood's elite started issuing responses. Public figures rekindled their support. Among those was the unexpected arrival of actor Marcus Finn, esteemed for his reserved nature. He broke the codes by publicly attesting, "I attended the same event with high hopes. Maxwell didn't show. Naomi's right. Veterans deserve representation, not facades." His support went viral, triggering a snowball effect of allies assembling on Naomi's side. Meanwhile, days passed as Naomi prepared a compilation of media and public sentiment, unable to establish a perceptible counter from his diminishing support, a projection of truth, and a representation of instructive authenticity directed at the overarching exposure of dissonance. Exponentially, discourse turned. Pundits who once scrutinized Naomi began to shift. What if we frame this conversation about leadership? A reminder of the values underpinning service, echoed within the airwaves. Naomi's error-filled pages of allegations aimed against her began unraveling before they could cement into perception. Emboldened, she released a sharp retaliation, revealing supportive evidence obtained over the years, punctuating with resounding assurance. The conversation surrounding her previous assertiveness now pitted her face to face with the shadows, shifting aim, placing truths at the forefront. With her staunch demeanor unwavering, she transitioned the conversation. Some wars are fought quietly, behind closed doors. This isn't merely about me. It concerns every voice muted by louder ones, the innocent left forgotten. The implications resonated. Maxwell's team began realizing that animosity wouldn't succeed. Instead, it would only invoke a force greater than they had anticipated. As social media fires stoked, the tides trend toward Naomi. She's on the right side of history, proclaimed commentators who previously indulged in judging. An unyielding freeness redefined the context of celebration amidst adversity. Finally, Naomi stood on stage. The long-awaited Veterans Honor Summit, an annual gathering where families, representatives, and volunteers united under a common value. Her countenance stood fierce yet calm, adorned in a navy blazer, as the crowd poised in anticipation. I came today wishing to honor those who have borne disrespect when they fought valiantly, not for applause or glory. I sought to not only uplift my loved ones, but every family touched by a power-hungry culture. We took a stand for the dignity that belongs to every veteran and every spouse condemned to languish in silence. The audience erupted in applause, but she raised her hand for calm. It isn't about taking jabs where they're not deserved. This is about honoring all families overshadowed by ignorance. This is about giving voice and power to the ignored, the muffled by those who don't understand, taking a stand for the forgotten. As the audience surged with appreciation, a palpable energy suffused the hall. Supported by Lucas's unwavering panache, Naomi crafted a narrative evidently meaningful, with even the opposition moments flashing beneath the pressure light. Both social media and major outlets championed Naomi's talk, not merely mentioning the instigator, but instead choosing to illuminate her journey. Naomi Winter's message re-ethically focused hope, truth, and resilience amidst pervasive hardship. Headlines passed through the ether, spinning a transformative plotline through the narrative ballpark. Resilience isn't a story written quietly. Naomi had reenacted it exponentially. She presided over the parallels of elegance and power. Moments later in private, she held the memory of the past, tucking away the drive that had braced her journey. A reminder, not a trophy. I didn't find victory through mirage. I simply existed, anchored by the truths that could not be silenced, for they could not be forced against a tide. As Naomi and Lucas closed this chapter, they looked forward to a world where voices mattered, each one echoing louder and standing for those turned away. The streets of hope resonated through countless stories, waiting to be unveiled. Stay tuned. There exists more within the worlds where truth one day prevails and will continue to rise, undeterred by time